This is a Muay Thai Library session with Arjan Pipa of Jockygym. That's him right there. And this is the Lampart Sorkamsing gym in Bangkok, which is just right off the road. It's this very cool, small, little gym. So Sorkamsing is the gym of Somrak, who must have had this man, Lampart, as his student. And so you'll see photos of him on the wall, and that's the name of the gym here. But Arjan Pipa is very well known, very famous for being a teacher, trainer to some of the biggest names of Femeu fighting. Sylvie from the Golden Age, Lurtsila and Sanchai all trained under Arjan Pipa. It's a cool little gym that we met him at in Bangkok. This was actually set up by one of our patrons who had trained with Arjan Pipa before and was just very, very keen on getting him in the Muay Thai Library. This makes me very excited because it means that there are people who understand what the Muay Thai Library is in preserving technique and legacy, as well as being literally invested in it, in that he sponsored this session and helped us set it up. But making sure that Arjan Pipa made it into the Muay Thai Library was something that he was very interested in and something that I'm very interested in, so I was very happy for that help and for that investment in him sponsoring this session and helping us set it up. This is actually after we had trained together and we were sitting and talking for a little bit, but it's just a little walk around the gym to take a look around. Arjan Pipa is almost 60 years old. He's turning 59 this year. I love this pillar that's just like in the corner of the ring. It has to make you very aware of where you are all the time. So this patron who sponsored this session and who helped set it up had told Arjan Pipa a little bit about me. So he's asking me about my 200 plus fights and pointing out the scars on my forehead. We're having a little bit of a conversation about it. But he makes this point that I really like. He's saying, for Muay Thai, the Wicca of Muay Thai, which is like a subject of study, he's like, you have to have defense and offense. You have to have everything. I love that immediately he's talking about defense because I do think that it's under-taught and underrepresented in a lot of ways. And a very solid defense makes you a very good offensive fighter. When Kevin and I ask great fighters who their top 5 are, something that they talk about all the time is he was able to go forward and back. He was able to strike and defend. It's this kind of like all-over, well-rounded fighter that makes a great fighter. He's saying if you don't have good defense, that's how you get cut. And he says, even Sanchai, because he's short, because he's a small fighter, he says when he fights bigger people, sometimes he does get elbowed. I'm like, when Thais see my scars, they think that my opponents have done these like incredible, beautiful elbows, but really it's a lot of headbutts and kind of walking into things. Saying Sanchai and Lurtsila, both are small, both can suffer elbows because of their height, but having a good defense, he says they've been cut a little bit, but having a good defense is the main thing. Don't just cover your eyes and don't keep your hands too low. He likes this really long guard and like constant movement. He's saying if a fighter is too tight, Kengrang means like tight or strong. If they're too like tensed up, he says that you suffer a lot of damage that way, that you have to be quite loose. Look at the way he stands. This totally expresses his personality. The kind of Femeu style that's like Hanuman, the Monkey King, the kind of like dancing around tricky thing that people absolutely love about Sanchai and Lurtsila, and before that Sylvie, is totally an expression of those people, and it comes from this same thing that Arjan Pipa, who taught all of them, he has this kind of mannerism as well. It's one of the very cool things about the Muay Thai Library is that not only are you preserving the techniques, but by preserving the men who express them and teach them, you get to see how it's an expression of their personality. really, when you look at a fighter in the ring who has sine, is what they call it in Thai, but it's like a charisma. When they're expressing their Muay through who they are, it always matches. The kind of fighter they are always matches who they are. Immediately, he's got this bend in his knees that makes him very flexible. He can move anywhere. He's very fast. See this? So, as he gallops forward, I gallop back. He's saying you have to move like the ocean. You have to move like waves. And he's saying a bird, if it has tight little wings, it can't fly. It'll just fall down. You have to have these like long, beautiful, like the wings of a bird. So he's making a point about Femeu in its quickness and in its ability to move anywhere is its looseness, like the big open wingspan of a bird. Look at the bend in his knees. I've worked a lot on not peg legging, and he totally showed me I've got a lot more to work on with it. He says the jab shouldn't stay out, it should be like a snake. So you're striking out and pulling it back. He actually caught my fist and turned it a little bit, a tiny little corkscrew at the end that allows me to actually pass his guard. And see how fast he does it. So you're actually corkscrewing through someone's guard with that jab. Look at his constant movement. He's not like hopping around meaninglessly, but he's constantly got this little like shock absorber in his knees. He's saying if the opponent punches, you can kind of slip left or right. If you've just punched, you know where your opening is, so you can kind of anticipate where your opponent is going to strike, and so then you can like anticipate that movement and just slip off to the side. It's like part of your constant movement combination of understanding and anticipating your opponent. Okay, so a teep from Arjan Pipa is an important thing to learn because all of his fighters have amazing teeps. Sylvie, Lursilla, Sanchai, their teeps are amazing. He says not to point your toes straight up, not because it can be caught, which is what I've always associated that with, but he angles them to the side because if the toes are straight up, it can slip off to the sides. Look at where his off arm goes. It goes behind his body. So he says you take a tiny step with your back foot in order to give reach and power to your front foot. It's just a little one. Nitiao means just a little bit. And see, my hand is not going behind me like his did, but I'm angling my foot a little bit to the side. So now he has me do the back leg. Kevin and I call this the monkey kick, incidentally. But you angle your toes in the same direction that you would for the left kick, but with the left teep, you're actually closing your leg, whereas with the back teep, you're opening your leg. And so my knee is actually pointed out. This gives incredible power to that teep. So I said this is the same as Sylvie, and he's like, yeah, because he learned it from me. Sure, that makes sense. What I like about this is that whether it's your front leg or your back leg, you're actually angling your foot the same way, so you don't have to like think a whole lot about it. He's saying that you can actually just stagger these teeps, like walk forward with them. So if you do the short teep with the front leg and the opponent goes backwards, now you've got this really long one just stepping after it. But he's saying you have to control it. Look at his knees. Like, watch his movement all the time. This is what allows you to move in the ways that he's asking me to move. When he gallops towards me, I gallop back because I'm mirroring him, but all the stuff in between, he never stops doing that. I turn it on when he's moving towards me. There we go. So I did the teep that he wanted me to do as he was coming towards me, but I'm asking him a question. I'm saying if you're gonna go with your back leg, you can't boom. Boom is to like hunch. He's like, no, you have to be upright because you're gonna kill your power if you like shrimp your body. I could feel it when I tried to teep him off of me and I went flying backwards too. Look at his hips. So he's actually faking with his hips. He's like moving them in all these different directions and then the teep comes out of it and you kind of can't see it. So he's saying do the front teep because he's
ถ้า
close.
สู้เดินเข้าไป
It would be the back teep if he's coming towards
อัน
me
ดั
if
บแร
he's
กคือห
farther.
นึ่งถีบด้านนี้ก็ได้
He's saying you can also teep the leg.
ปึ๊บ
I asked him whether the
yeah,
angle is the
yeah,
same
yeah,
if
yeah.
you're teeping the leg, and he
Yeah,
says
yeah,
yes,
yeah,
because it'll
yeah,
definitely
yeah.
slip off.
ลิลลี่ถีบขาซ้ายปึ๊บปึ๊บปึ๊บปึ๊บ
So see how I'm actually stopping his kick by teeping his front
นี่
leg?
คือถีบหน้าขา
This is great if you're fighting a teeper, or I mean, sorry, if you're fighting a kicker, you can just kill their kick by teeping their standing leg.
ปึ๊บมา
And so he's saying change it. Sometimes teep the leg, sometimes teep the body. He's faking me with hips.
ยกขาตลอดลิลลี่ยกขาตลอด
Yokkatalot means to lift the leg all the time. What he means is bounce that front leg. So basically, by bouncing that front leg, he can't know when that teep is going to come out. It's like a built-in fake, but you're bouncing it all the
ทีขวา
time.
ลิลลี่ทีขวาตรงนี้ไม่ได้ เพราะมันจะไม่แรง
So with my right leg, which is my back leg, I teeped him in the hip.
ทีระยะนี้ระยะนี้
This is what I've
แต่
done
ทีขวามัน
when
อยู่ระยะ
I
นี้
faced an opponent whose leg I was teeping and she put an entire jar of Vaseline on her leg to stop me, is I started teeping her hip. He's saying, if I use my back leg, don't
มันจะ
teep
ไม่ได้
the
มัน
hip,
จะดึงได้
because they can just sink their hip back and I miss it. He's saying if you use your front teep, go for it. You can totally hit the hip because they can't get away. But if you try to use the back leg because it's farther away on that hip, he can actually pull it out of the way. So it wasn't a mistake in the teeping of the hip. It was a mistake in which leg it was of teeping the hip.
ดีมาก
I love this. So he's like, if your opponent is going to run at you and try to grab you, I know to grab the insides of the arms. I know this already. I do not know what he's showing me here, which is this beautiful pivot off to the side. But right here, what he's showing me is to actually bring the arm, you let it slip from the elbow down low to the glove and actually put all your torque as you're grabbing their glove. Oh man, they go spinning. It's amazing. That's a real response you're seeing in me right there. When I'm like, oh. It's like, this is awesome. So as he's coming to grab me, see how I go down by the wristband of his glove? Oh, it spins like crazy. You can grab the inside of the elbow in order to control an elbow, but because his weight is all launching at me as I slip down to the glove, by slipping to the like end of the hammer where the weight is, it really sends him spinning. He's saying if you don't do this, if you just try to grab the inside of the elbow, he has balance and he's like, I'm going to elbow you for sure. He can't throw that right elbow because I'm pulling his left arm. He's like spinning out. Super important is to let your hand slip down to the wristband of the glove, but you also have to step out. I loved this technique so much, but I struggled with it because I kind of left my butt out, and by leaving my butt out, I couldn't pivot with my legs quite the way that I needed to. You pivot exactly the same way you would when you're turning someone in the clinch. It's kind of like a dance step off to the side. This is the opposite thing to do. So one is to pull him to the side. The other is as he's coming towards me to basically slip outside his front arm and use that to grab him like this. And then you have to lock. So basically just carry his front arm to the side and grab him. But he's saying how important it is to lock once you get inside, which I'm not doing there. Kevin is telling me I have to lock. See how he locks under my chin? He's actually kind of choking me a little bit. But if you don't lock them, they can move their arm back around you and get out. But if you lock, they can't get out.
Wrist to wrist, wrist to wrist.
There we go. I'm putting one wrist on top of the other. They should actually be wrist to wrist, like the front of each wrist. The way you would like zip tie someone's hands together.
นี่คืออาจารย์ยาวจนโยกโยก
So here he's having me alternate between the two, right? So I can either come to the inside of his arm and slip down to his hand and turn him, or I can come to the outside of his arm and lock him.
ปีขวาอาจารย์บางออกปีขวาอาจารย์บางออกปึ๊บทีบเลยที่นี่
So this has been taught by a lot of people. This is a very Femeu thing, but you can use it for any style. But basically, you get your opponent blocking with kicks, and then you fake the kick and turn it into a teep
คู่ต่อสู้เปลี่ยน
because they're on one leg.
ให้คุณก็เปลี่ยน
Oh, I love that so much.
ทำนี้แล้วก็พวกแม่หลังใช่ไหมแล้วก็
ไม่
So I'm saying my butt's back and I can't pull you, and he's like, yeah, you can't keep your ass back.
ตุ้นรักไปทำอะไร
His imitation of it is brutal, but that's totally what I'm doing.
เหมือนกัน
He says you have to be like a matador. But I need to step quite close to his stance as I'm turning. And you don't have to like keep your hips in, but you can't move your butt back instead of your legs. Like you have to do like a nice, as if there's a bar between your feet, like pivot.
แย่ล็อกเลยตายแล้วอาจารย์
แบบนี้
There, that's the wrist to wrist that I was talking about a second ago. Like that.
ความแข็งแรงไม่
That's
มี
how you lock.
นี่ความแข็งแรงมี พออยู่ที่นี่คู่ต่อสู้หันหลังให้แล้ว
He's saying that if you have your arm around their neck and you can come around to their back, they have no power to escape from you.
ตายแล้วครับดึงลงเลยทำอะไรก็ได้
And then he's saying, go ahead and just rip them down. Because they can't do anything. The opponent can't do anything to get away from
อ๋อ
you.
ใช่
โมโหวิ่งเข้าไปทีบเลย
ใช่
ปึ๊บปัง
So he's saying, moho, wingo bai. Moho in Thai means like to be angry. So he's saying you basically have pissed your opponent off, and so they're going to run at you even faster. This is one of the things that your trainer in Thailand will constantly be telling you, Jai Yen Yen or Mai Jai Ron, like they don't want you to get mad. Because when you're emotional and you start charging in, you have less control of your body and your opponent has more control over you. So, if you watch the most recent Ramba session in the Muay Thai Library, he's like, piss your opponent off so that they really throw a strong head kick. And as they do this, you come down and you slam against their leg. So, different styles all play with the opponent's emotional state, and not getting angry is really important for being able to not fall into your opponent's rhythms or tricks or ability to move you like this. So he wants me to switch back and forth. Getting a little bit discombobulated, but you basically just pick whether you're going to parry them inside or come to the inside of their arm for the turn. Look at his knees. Constantly look at this bounce. He's got this little like shock absorber movement. So he's saying you can't block with your hand too close, but like floating off your face.
ใช่
Because you just get like, stop hitting yourself if anyone's ever had older brothers. So he wants a really long guard. If you put it far enough away from your face, it's not going to hit you as they hit it. Or you can put it directly on and not have that like little buffer so that it's going to slam into you. But he likes it long. This is just parrying as he's punching. So he's saying that long is better because with this long guard, even if they get somewhat past it, they're too far away for like an elbow. So he's saying the opponent gets mad and they come and try and grab you, and you just matador them. So he's saying that you can actually turn them on the opposite side too. So this inside-outside thing of whether you're going to grab them or whether you're going to turn them, it doesn't matter whether you're going left or right, it's just whether you go inside or outside. So he's showing how this, like, Kevin and I call it the 11 guard, this like kind of boxer's guard, just like this. If it's tight and you're just kind of like robocopping forward, it's very easy for people to elbow you on your way in. So he's talking about this flexibility in the legs and the length in the guard of the arms to protect against that.
ปึ๊บถ้าอย่างนี้นี่เทควันโดไม่แรงนี่แรง
So he's saying that if my foot is totally turned, there's no power, and he keeps straightening my knee. So he wants the toes slightly turned. It's almost like a 45-degree angle in, but the knee is really straight.
ปั๊บปั๊บ
But look at how he's bouncing that front leg. That part's really important,
เอาอุ้ย
so that you can't time it. If you can time someone's teep, it's pretty easy to like bat it away or get out of the way of it. So that's why you bounce that front leg, is so that they don't know when it's actually coming. So he's having me time the teep now and pivot off to the side. Like he basically is taking things that he's shown me and letting me kind of matador him a little bit.
บล็อกบล็อกคู่ต่อสู้โมโหเตะไปข้างลินแบก
So I blocked twice. The opponent gets pissed off and they go to really sail this kick, like they're going to kick through my block. And so I get out of the way on that one. And they're going to go flying because they really put all of their effort into that one because they're mad.
นิดเดียว
When you do this little dodge back, you can't let your back leg go too far back because then you're stuck.
ป้องกันตัวเวลา
So
นิดเดียว
he barely moves his back leg. He's just basically like bending his knees and going from the waist. But he makes a big deal about where your arm goes.
นี่
He's saying you're going to get kicked in the arm if you leave it in front of your body. So he tucks his arm behind him. Look how fast he is.
นิดเดียวใกล้ๆเหรอวับ
He's got a little wiggle in his hips too.
วับ
You can see how much he enjoys his own movements. Like he's having fun.
วับมาเลยทีนี้ปั๊บ
So you go ahead and strike the opponent when they've lost control by missing that kick. Because you've blocked them before, so they're really going to put their weight into that last one, and that's when you get out of the way. And they kind of go spinning.
Go back, come back, คู่ต่อสู้ opponent come back, heat
ใช่
มา
So he's saying if the opponent misses, right, they're going to come running back at you, and that's when you teep. So you basically just keep annoying them.
ทุกครั้งเรื่องการทีบพุทคิกสต็อปพุทคิก
He's saying
เหมือนกัน
He's saying of all weapons, push kick is the best defense. Like just push kick and teep someone endlessly. It's like juggling. If you want to see the efficacy of this, watch Sylvie. He basically teeps you, juggling you like a hacky sack until he's ready to kick you. So it's just like teep, 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 and now I'm going to land this huge striking point kick on you. It's totally what he's talking about right here.
บังให้แข็งแรงยืนขาซ้ายให้แข็งแรง
He's saying your block has to be quite strong, so you can't lean back on it.
มันจะล้ม
He's saying if you're off balance, like you block and you're off balance, it's no good.
เห็นไหมไปแล้วสบาย
See that? See how I fell off of that? I basically want, when I'm blocking him, to make it look like he just kicked a wall.
มันจะมีหลายอย่าง
ใช่
อะไรบ้าง
So if I block, and it looks like he's just hitting a wall, and then I get out of the way, and then I teep him, it basically looks like I'm controlling him, even though he's the one using these kicks, which are a huge strong point in Muay Thai. But because they're being blocked, dodged, and teeped, it looks like I'm juggling him.
ดีมากยืน
And he's just getting madder and madder, and more tight, and more predictable. This is if you have seen the Joe Hong Kong
เหมือนกันที่
session, he talks about how it's the job of Femeu to annoy people,
นิดเดียว
which is funny because he's a Muay Thai fighter, so he knows that a Femeu fighter is meant to just annoy you all the time.
ปักทำอะไรโอเพนแล้วโอเค
So if someone's punching you in the body,
เตะก็ได้
you can melt away,
ปัง
or you can elbow over it.
ต่อยท้องเตะก้านคอ
He's saying if someone's punching your body, you can kick them in the neck.
เตะเลยพร้อมกัน
พร้อมกัน
พร้อมกันกับต่อย
I'm like promgan, which means like simultaneous. So as they're coming to punch you in the stomach, you're kicking them in the head at the same time. Like it's your counter to their body punch. You don't get out of the way and then head kick them. You actually throw the head kick as they're coming for your body.
ปัง
It's kind of incredible.
ปังชัวร์
He's saying that they're going to get hit for sure.
ครับ
Your leg is longer than the punch, so I guess it kind of makes sense if your leg gets there first.
ปัง
You gotta be pretty brave about it though.
ต่อยข้างถอยหลังปุ๊บ เหมือนกันกับลินแบก
So he's saying if the opponent changes and they're going to try to punch you in the face,
คุณดูเปลี่ยน
you just dodge backwards.
ปักปึ๊บเข้ามา
So he's showing how with a kick or with a punch, this dodge back basically makes your opponent miss and spin out.
every time เหรอ
Every time he wants this like long guard.
ugly hitting you again
There, and as he comes to try to grab me, you spin him out.
โอ้โหเข่าขวาคุณก็ออกซ้ายเหมือนกันปึ๊บอย่า
เวลาคาที่เอา
ขาเดียวเขาเข่าขวาเขาก้าวมวยเข่า
So
เวลาเขาแทงมือเขายาว
I'm looking at, he's being Muay Thai, right? So he's got this long guard and he's coming in with his knees. So I'm actually turning while one leg is in the air. And so I'm asking him which way to turn. Do you turn towards the leg or away from the leg?
ปุ๊บ
He actually has you turning towards the one that's kneeing.
เท้าขวา
ครับ
ตรง
ใช่ไม่ทางซ้าย
So I'm like, if they're coming with their right knee, do you pull that side?
ตัวเอียง
So I'm actually, like, my foot is going towards his standing leg, but you're pulling on the same side as the side that's trying to knee you. He blocked with his butt. And then he came running at me to prove that point, that as the opponent gets madder and madder and keeps coming at you, the more they turn into the bull, the more you become the matador and you're just kind of juggling them or keeping them off you or stepping to the side. But you stay, Jai Yen Yen.
อย่าไปแบบ stop โลโบคอป up to fun ไม่มีแรง
He's talking about tension. He's talking about like being a tight RoboCop, like like fighter. Makes you very predictable, and you just can't move.
ครั้งแรกถ้าคุณไม่รู้คุณไม่รู้เวลาผมแทงคุณก็ยกอยู่แค่นี้ปั๊บยกอยู่แค่นี้ต่อไปคุณรู้แล้วที่แทงเขาเป็นเดิมอยู่ดึงเลยทีนี้ปักทำอะไร
ใช่
ผมโมโหผมไป
So
ทาง
he's
ซ้าย
saying the first time someone comes to knee
ทำไม
you,
คุณก็ทีบเขาปัก
they don't know what you're gonna do, and so you do this turn, and then they're like, okay, I know she's gonna turn me, and so you change it to the teep. So basically, you have like 3 moves that you can shuffle through, but you want to remain kind of unpredictable
หนึ่งนี่
yourself.
ไม่ได้โอเพนเปิดมือ
He's talking about elbows.
กลบเนี่ยเหมือนกัน
He's saying that you have to have your hands open.
ได้
I took my gloves off and he's like, no, you can leave them on, but this is good that I took them off so that you can see what the point he's making. And this is a point that anyone who's good at elbows will make, is that you actually need your hands to be quite loose and
ที่
soft.
นี่ไม่มี
ใช่
You cannot elbow with fists.
แบ
It makes them short, and he's saying you're actually not even going to hit with the bone if you have
ไม่เหมือนกัน
gum. Gum is to make a fist.
ทำให้สัน
And he's saying it's not going to go anywhere, and it's not going to hit the bone. If you blade your hand
ใช่
or keep it kind of loose, that's how you're going to end up hitting with the bone of your elbow, which is actually what cuts, and it makes it faster and
เท
looser.
คนิคการเข่าถ้าคุณทำอย่างนี้ตลอดไม่ได้
I'm saying this is the same as a knee. I'm a knee fighter, so I know this. If you flex your foot on a knee, like if you have it tight, the power goes out from where you want it to be on the knee. He's saying you can't have super tense legs while trying to knee because it's like being a ballerina.
สอบเหมือนกัน
He's saying you have to have this bend in your knees and this flexibility. Whether you're throwing elbows or knees, you want this kind of like looseness in the areas that you're not needing it.
เทคนิคการใช้ศอกเหมือนคู่ต่อสู้ใจยาวคู่ต่อสู้
So he's saying if your opponent is tall,
ซ้ายปึ๊บนับดีมากถ้าเราขยับ
see how my elbow has to come up because he's quite
หลั
tall?
งมันไม่ดีนิดเดียว
He's saying turn your foot just a little bit as your weight's coming forward. This is kind of how most people jab, is like taking this little step here. He has his foot angle in just the slightest bit so that as the elbow's going, you get a little bit more of reach on it. But see, now I'm using my back elbow as he's coming forward. So if I'm coming forward, it's my front elbow. If he's coming towards me, it's my back elbow.
โอเค
But don't be tight.
No, we good. Up, 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 ไม่เหมือนกันทัดมาลา
Patmala is tucking a flower behind your ear, so that's the elbow that like kind of comes up and your hand slicks your hair back. And then see how you go straight back into, if I'm throwing elbows at him, I'm kind of chasing him down. He's gonna like bull rush back at me, and then I can just spin him off to the side with that technique that I like so much.
อ่า
I was too far away for that elbow. That's one of the reasons you wait for him to be coming towards you for your back elbow.
เหมือนกันพร้อมกันครับอ่ะ
But if I'm going to be chasing him
ว่ามัน
down,
ยาวมันไกล
you actually just switch your stance. You actually just step forward with your back leg and throw your back elbow
ความคุณสู้เพิ่มนิ้วอ่า
if he's going backwards.
เข้าใจอ่ะ
And hopefully, if he's going into the ropes, you know he's not going to go farther than that.
กลับหลังปึ๊บซ้าย
And then I have to come back out.
นิ้ว
Sok up. Sok is an elbow. Gap means like reverse or back. So he's asking for a reverse elbow off of these. So I've kind of chased him into the ropes. And then elbow, elbow, reverse. What?
ปึ้งสเต็ปคู่ต่อสู้กลับมา
Look at his reverse elbow. See how he has like a like whoop and it accelerates on the end?
สบาย
It's really pretty.
ยืนหลีเข้ามานิ้วครับฮัดนิ้วเพิ่มนิ้วเพิ่มนิ้วเพิ่มนิ้ว
Here we go.
โอ้สวยมาก
So you have to step outside of the opponent's stance in order for that elbow to hit.
สบายยับมานิ้วยับมานิ้วศอกซ้ายดูศอกซ้ายดูคู่ต่อสู้วิ่งเข้าไปขาหัว
So he's saying if your opponent starts coming towards you, that's when you throw that reverse elbow. So I'm like chasing him with elbows.
ยับ
A lot of people will like dodge back and then come at you. He's actually shown me to do this. So you anticipate them or you see them starting to resist you and come back at you, and that's when you step outside and throw that back elbow.
ถ้าอย่างนี้ไม่ได้นิดเดียวครับมีเทคนิคการใช้ศอก
So he's saying you have to step just a little.
ดูคู่ต่อสู้
แล้วแต่คุณครู
แล้วแต่คู่ต่อสู้เข้ามา
ใช่
ปั๊บ
So he's saying it depends on the opponent. If the opponent starts to come at you, that's when you do a reverse elbow. Do not throw reverse elbows at someone you're chasing unless they've gone into the ropes where you know they can't move. You're not going to land it while they're moving backwards. That's for someone who's coming at you. Those are pretty.
ที่นี่เหมือนกันยับแล้วศอกเลยไม่ต้องศอกซ้ายยับแล้วศอกกลับเลยมันมีหลายอย่างยับปั๊บนี่แน่นอนโยกไว้โยกไว้ที่นี่โยกยับไม่เข้าทุนที่ยังไม่เข้ายับ
So see how he's moving around like he's trying to escape me, but then he comes back at me. So it's being able to have the eyes to see whether your opponent is truly retreating or whether they're going to try to bull rush back at you, and you punish them at that moment that they reverse. So he's trying to make my right a little bit more powerful and fast.
เหมือนอาจารย์เข่าคุณสลับไปดูนะขาขวาขาซ้าย
So you have to step outside of their stance in order for that reverse elbow to land. Otherwise, it's going to go to the outside of their body.
ได้ผลมากคือเราถอยไปไม่ลงมา
So he's saying a lot of people for this reverse elbow,
สู้มาแล้ว
when they've gone into the ropes,
100%
so he's me. If I go into the ropes and someone's chasing after me, I can step off to the side. It's like a tiny little escape, and my opponent is charging in on me, and so I'm getting this elbow in as I'm like escaping to the side. So it's off of the ropes that I'm throwing this.
โอ้
I'm asking him where he
เทค
looks
นิคการมองเล่น
on
ไม่
an
100%
opponent,
ครับว่าคุณ
and
จะ
he's
มองที่ไหน
like,
คุณจะสู้
never
ม
look
องหน้า
any
ได้
one
มองหน้า
place
อกมองทุกอย่าง
100%. You need to look
มองทุกอย่าง
everywhere.
คุณอย่าไปจ้องมองแต่
Just don't
มอง
look
แต่
at what
ข้าง
you're
มองแต่ห
hitting.
น้าไม่ได้ครับ
So like, if you want to kick someone's legs, don't look there. Look literally anywhere else. If you want to punch them in the face, you can look down kind of thing. But he's not a like stare into the eyes. He's not a like watch the legs. He says
ทุกอย่าง
you can look anywhere. Just make sure that you can see everything.
มองคู่ต่อสู้ทุกอย่างมองทุกอย่าง
It's like anything that allows you to see what your opponent's doing.
อาจารย์สไลด์นี่นะลูกนี้เหมือนคู่ต่อสู้เข้ามาเขาขยับไม่ได้อาจารย์ขยับซ้ายรีบฟันเลย
So he's southpaw. He's just switched to orthodox for me to show something.
ท่านมาลา เพราะตัวนี้เราฟันไม่ได้เพราะว่าเขา
So see how he's
เรา
putting
ฟัน
his arm out. This is if he's coming to like
ถ้าพูด
hook me or his arm is out to grab me. You just come inside his reach
ทีนี้คู่ต่อสู้
with that elbow, with that upward
อ้าว
elbow.
ขาซ้ายเดี๋ยวเราก็ซ้ายเหมือนกันทีนี้เงือกครับเงือกครับ
So see how my foot has to step forward and my foot goes slightly in order to get reach on that front elbow.
ครับทีบขาทีบซ้าย
So he's saying teep the leg, basically juggle him, get him pissed off. He's going to come a little bit harder, and then you can hit him with that elbow.
เอาไปทีนี้
He likes toying with his opponent's emotions.
ทีบ
Make them kind of like rush in. He kind of gets them panic breathing a little bit, and they get too fast.
ทีบทีบ
So you juggle with the teep. He's going to come harder to try to come through the teep. You fake it, and then you throw that back elbow.
ไม่สวยแล้วไม่สวยแล้วยกนะอย่ายกสูงนิดดิ
ใช่
ถ้ายกสูง
So he's saying that you have to bring your leg up quite high in order to make it really look like you're
ใช้ความเร็ว
going to throw that teep. You can't just like bank on them thinking that you're going to throw the teep. Because when you actually teep, your knee comes quite high. So you fake it again, you bring it up, but then you just step down across yourself so that you can throw that back elbow.
ท่านมาละดูท่านมาละท่านมาละคือใช้เฉพาะใกล้ๆ
So again, tatmala is that elbow that comes up where you're like slicking your hair back. It's an upwards elbow.
รูดปึ๊บฮึบโผ
So see how he's having me put it together with the spin. So like if he's putting his arms way up
บางครั้ง
to try to grab me, then I can pull him down
แล้ว
and throw the elbow inside.
โน้ตผมแฮมโน้ต100%แล้วแต่คุณปึ๊บนะโชว์
There we go.
ปึ๊บ
So see how I'm inside his guard. Because I'm inside his elbows, that allows me to throw an upward elbow. If you're outside someone, you can't get past their arm.
I strong
So he's saying if the opponent is strong, like if they're pushing against you,
ไม่เข้า
he's like, where is it open?
ซ้ายเลยที่ซ้ายศอกซ้ายเลยปึ๊บเพราะมัน
So basically, if we're like pushing against each other, he wants me to collapse my resistance and turn it into an elbow. So I basically just kind of like fold the leg into him. And by leg, I mean arm, but I was thinking about the leg of a chair.
พลาดเลยไม่เป็นไรพลาดมา
See, my butt went back as I was trying to turn him there. So I started laughing because I like was too far away from him. If you put your butt back, you end up really far away from your opponent, which makes it hard for you to turn them. But you're also far away at the end of it. So the strike that you have on the end of that is gonna have to be longer than something that if you're like staying in close to them, you can throw these
บาง
elbows.
ลูกทอยใช่บางลูกทอยใช้ระยะนี้
Oh.
โอ้
So this like axe elbow, he's saying you can throw it to the jaw, but he's saying you really focus on like the collarbone or like the top area of the chest. Holy shit, guys, this would hurt so bad.
โชว์
He's all relaxed, just throwing these elbows, and then he throws his axe elbow into your collarbone. Oh, that would hurt so bad.
นิดเดียวถ้าแรงมันจะไม่หนักนิดเดียว
So see how he comes up a little bit and then kind of like falls into it. So you kind of rise and then pop down on it.
ไม่ต้องออกจากหัว
I'm asking, does your hand have to come away from your head, or do you keep it on there? And he's like, you can't put it way out because then you're going to lose any power on the elbow. But it doesn't necessarily have to be touching. You just kind of keep it here and kind of circle it. So you need to have looseness in your shoulder. Oh.
ศอกซ้ายศอกขวาท่านมาละบางลูกทอย
Baduk toy is what he's calling that downward like axe elbow. Baduk toy.
มันจะไม่ค่อยโดนที่นี่บางลูกทอยมันจะโดนประมาณนี้
ใช่
He's saying you don't throw that axe elbow to the crown. You throw it
เจ็บมาก
down low.
เจ็บมาก
แล้วก็
Oh, that would kill your punches. If you were hitting a puncher in their like collarbone, top of their chest,
ใช่
I have brothers. They would do something called like a dead leg or a dead arm, where they like hit your arm or leg so hard that it goes dead, like the muscle hurts. That's what's happening when you like elbow in here, and then you can't really move your arms for your punches. He's telling me to be more playful. He actually said like a monkey, so like kind of play around, move around, be really annoying. I'm frustrated because my hips won't stay in for that turn. I surprised him with that backwards elbow. He told me to teep, and I faked the teep and threw the backwards elbow, and he was so genuinely surprised by it. He like needs a moment to recover from that surprise. It's kind of incredible because he just taught it to me, but because he was so genuinely surprised, he was like not ready for it. That's why you play with it.
สำหรับฝรั่งชอบที่มาแล้วก็จังหวัดยากมาก
So I'm saying that Western fighters actually really love Femeu style, but they don't really look at their opponent so much. Like they have the things that they want to do, but they're not really responding to their opponent so much. It's very hard because all styles boil down to what in Thai is called jangwa, which means timing and rhythm. But for Femeu, you have to do so much sparring to be able to like see and be able to respond to your opponent at all times and see how you're affecting them and things like this. You can't just kind of like dance around in space and pretend that you're Sanchai. Sanchai actually like looks at what his opponent is doing and what tensions he's creating in them in order to be able to do the things that he does.
ที่นี่เทคนิคการทีบทีบยังไงป้องกันทีบทีบปัก
So he's talking about how to defend against a teep. See how he just pulled his hips out of the way and I went flying. This is why you have to have control of your teep as a teeper. Like you don't want to super extend it because if it gets batted out of the way or they dodge you, you have to be able to land on the other side of it. He's showing how to bat it away. He says to do it way down, like where the heel is. He's saying you have to pull your hips back and bat it just a little bit. He's saying nowadays a lot of people catch it. He's like, back in the day nobody caught it. You just like move out of the way. Now people really like to catch it and pull to the side. He's like, that's okay. If you want to catch it, you can yank it to the side of your body. But he's like, for my generation, for my Muay, he likes to just kind of move out of the way. He's saying if you catch the teep, you've got the person stuck, and so they can nail you in the face with a punch. That's why when you trap it, you really want to pull it to the side of your body, is to make it so the opponent doesn't have the balance to throw that punch on top of it. But by just getting out of the way, what he prefers, they don't really have that opportunity.
คู่ต่อสู้มันจะปึ๊กคู่ต่อสู้เขาก็แข็งเหมือนกันแต่ถ้าเราอ่อนคู่ต่อสู้แข็งปักฮะมันจะไป
He's saying if the opponent is tight, you can bat it away. That's really good. If the opponent is loose, you can't really bat it away. That's why you would want to get out of the way instead.
ดีมากยกบังนี่โดนละเจ็บแล้ว
So
ที่นี่
he's hurting me by just putting his knee up. So his defense to the teep is also to just put your knee up and block it, because I can attest to this. If you nail someone in the knee with your toe or the heel of your foot or like the ball of your foot, it's very painful. It's a really good defense. So we're going back again to like basic, this is how you defend. Is basically anytime your opponent turns into a bull, you just want a matador. This is how you block someone who's coming to kick you at close range or to knee you. You just block with your own knee. You hit the fleshy part on the inside of the leg. It hurts so bad. I've done this in training a couple of times, like not actually intending to hurt my trainer or sparring partner, and it's you just hit him right on the right spot. It hurts. So see how I don't have to be that far away from him. Our hands are actually touching, and I can keep him in the leg. I can put my knee up and block his knee. I can just step to the side and pull him.
ลิลลี่ก็บล็อกเลยอย่ามึงทำอะไรเนี่ย ไม่มีถูกอยู่เฉย
He's saying if you block this for real, like if you do this the way you would in a fight, you're gonna hurt your training partners. That's not what happened right there. It's not doing anything wrong. It's just that the inside of your leg has nerves in it that when you hit him against a knee, like you're throwing a knee, so you're putting all the power behind it, it hurts.
เราดันเราสั้นกว่าเขา
โอ้ยใช่
So he's saying you don't want to like Frankenstein your arms out straight, because someone can just bat them down and elbow over them. So instead you want to keep your arms long to be able to kind of interrupt their guard, but then use your lower body to really interrupt them as well, or push them to the side or grab them. Like, it's a little bit complicated. It's something that you actually have to play with to be able to feel, because the feeling of it is really important, and the flexibility of it is really important. You can't just have your guard out long all the time like Frankenstein, because people can manipulate you with it like this.
ไปแล้ว
ข้างใน
Instead, you want to have flexibility in the length of your guard.
การใช้ศอกใช้ระบบอย่า
Oh,
แข็ง
look at
ถ้า
how he
แข็งมันไม่ได้
swings with that back elbow. It's so pretty.
swing นี่
สวิง
Wian means to like turn.
นี่คือการใช้ศอกแล้วก็นี่บล็อกนี่นี่รู้แล้วใช่ไหมปึ๊กปึ๊กปึ๊กปึ๊กลูกดึงปัดไปด้วยเนี่ย
So see, I block his knees a couple of times with mine, and then I can do a spinning elbow, I can pull him out to the side. This is something that any of these great trainers will tell you, is that you don't have to have 90 things that you do, you can have 3 things that you do, but it's being imaginative with them and switching between them, like shuffling the cards frequently enough that you're not, what is the word? Predictable.
นี่ก็ได้ที่แหกนิ้วมันมีหลายอย่าง
ใช่
So this is when your opponent has their arms outstretched.
ใช้หัวลิ่ๆครับอย่าให้หัวมันโดนศอกเขาดูมันศอกว่าใช้ความเร็วฮะ
So he's saying that you have to duck under their arm. If you kind of like nosedive forward, you can just get an elbow in your forehead.
ทำอะไรอ่ะ
So I have to parry his arm inside a little bit, and then I want to duck under his arm a little bit, like that, and then use my head
นี่คือเทคนิค
in the
การ
lock.
ป้องกันมวยเข่าแล้วก็เทคนิคป้องกันมวยฝีมือฝีมือเหมือนกันทำยังไง
So he's like, I've showed you how to defend yourself against Muay Thai. This is how you defend yourself against
ใช้
Femeu.
เตะมา
So say you're fighting a Muay Femeu fighter. How do you defend yourself against their annoying monkeyness?
ทุกทีคุณบังใช่ไหม
Basically what he says is it's this deck reshuffle. You let them do something once or twice so that you know what they're doing, and then you're just faster on switching it up. So if you're having like a kicking war with Sylvie, for example, where it's just kick, 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 he's gonna win that exchange all the time because he's faster. So you have to change at some point, at a moment that he doesn't expect, and teep instead, or kick on a side that he wasn't anticipating. You have to change something and be faster than Femeu. So the way that you solve Femeu is to be faster and to do something that they didn't anticipate.
ปึ๊กมาไม่ดูเตะมาอาจารย์ตัดปั๊บอาจารย์จับมาปั๊บปึ๊บเปลี่ยนทีม
So see, we're having this kicking game.
ขวา
This is actually really good to train in your gym. You just kick each other back and forth. You practice the block the kick, kick back, block the kick, kick back, and then you change without them knowing, and you do the teep instead.
คือทีม
This is how you beat Femeu.
ก็เอฟิเมอร์เวลา
ใช่เวลาฝีมือใช้ความ
Salap, salap. Salap means to like switch, so like a switch kick is salap. But it also means to like
ต่อยก็ไม่เข้า
switch up what you're doing to change. So salap, you have like 1 or 2 things and you switch between them.
มวยเข่าไม่เข่าเขาถ้าเขาดูเราทำเขาจะออกทะเลเลยทำอะไรยับเห็นไหมใส่
So if you're fighting Muay Thai, they're going to come straight at you more or less, and so you're basically juggling them. But against Femeu, you really just want to kind of be
ต่อย
unpredictable.
ไม่หมัดจับได้ตีเข่าถ้าไม่จำเป็นอย่าไปจับไม่หมัดเขา
So I said, what do you do if you're fighting a puncher? And he's like, punchers just want to punch. So you basically just take their arms away. So this thing that he showed me, even for a Muay Thai fighter, slipping to the side, if you're facing a puncher, you just take their arms off and you're fine.
เราตีเหมือนก่อนเขา
He's saying never meet power with power. It's no good.
ใช่
You have to meet it with technique.
เขาต่อยแล้วทีบด้วยที่นี่ทีบแล้วทีบปัดอุ้ยปัดทำอะไร
So I'm using teeps to kind of juggle him, get him coming forward. He wanted me actually to kick him in the head because he was going to throw a body punch that he had shown me earlier.
ต่อยไม่หมัดต่อยไม่หมัดยับไปทีไว้ยับไปสองกลับยอดไว้ทันเวลา
ใช่
ไม่หมัด
So basically,
ทำอะไร
ใช่
if you're facing a puncher has a particular range. A Muay Thai fighter has a particular range. It's the length of their arm or the length of our knees. And so you basically want to juggle them outside that range all the time, and then have them rush past it themselves as they get angry, and you grab them on the other
อ
side.
ย่างนี้ได้ถ้าบล็อกอย่างนี้
He's talking about blocking here, and he's saying that you don't want to block with the outside of your
นี่คือ
shin.
การบล็อก
You want to get right on the bone because it hurts
อา
the
จารย์เตะไม่
opponent.
มันปึ๊บไม่มัน
So I have to turn my knee out just a little bit. It's like opening a door.
นี่คือบล็อกสองบล็อกใช่ไหมบล็อกต่อไปไม่ต้องบล็อกที่นี่ทีบที่นี่
So he's like, you block the first one,
ปึ๊บ
and then you teep on the second one.
แล้วปึ๊บปึ๊บ
It doesn't have to be like one and one.
สองสาม
But he's showing how to change, and he's saying that you can teep
เวลาคู่ต่อสู้เตะ
anywhere on that standing leg, hip, or body. But he's saying that you can actually teep the kicking leg as well. He's saying do it carefully, because the same way that blocking a knee with your knee kind of hurts, there's power behind their kick. So you want to be gentle when you're training with someone you're not trying to hurt in teeping their kicking leg, because there's power behind it.
ทีบหน้าขาเหมือนอาจารย์ทีบหน้าขาปักนะทีบไว้ตั้งไว้
So I'm stopping his kick by teeping the standing leg, and then I can also teep the kicking leg. But I'm just juggling him, basically. Backwards elbow. Salat. Change it up.
เบรกไว้พี่นิดใช่ไม่ใช่อย่างนี้นิดเดียว
So I'm saying that the way that a Femeu style fighter is juggling their opponent is like Takro, which is a game in Thailand. He's doing the Sanchai cartwheel kick. He's saying that Sanchai was actually really good at Takro. It's a little bit like hacky sack or volleyball, but with your feet. Like you volley a ball over a net like volleyball, but you use your feet.
ใช่
Arjan Pipa is turning 59 this year, and he hasn't done any training in about 4 months. So he didn't warm up properly before imitating Sanchai for his cartwheel kick. Pulled his groin a little bit. He's saying that he can tell that I understand what he's saying to me. And it's like, of course, I understand what he's telling me, but you can't just take a 1-hour lesson of something and become good at it. You have to practice things. Like, you have to do them endlessly and play with them and feel them. He's saying that it's very boring to train where you're just kicking a pad 50 times on either side. He's like, nobody would stay in Muay Thai if you just do this. He's like, you have to play in Muay Thai in order for it to be fun and in order for you to love what you're doing. He is not rare in being someone who says this. People who have gone through the golden age and who are incredible at training fighters always talk about how important it is to play in Muay Thai and to have fun. I'm saying that you have to spar a lot. He's like 100%. You have to spar all the time because you have to be able to feel everything and see everything. He's saying people can train really well, but if they don't spar, when they go into a fight, they're very tight. They can't do anything. I'm saying if you kick pads all the time, it's good because your trainer stays exactly where they need to be for your kick to land, but your opponent's not going to do that for you. They're not going to stand right at your kicking range. So you have to spar because pad holders are not will against will. Whereas sparring, someone is trying to trick you, someone's trying to fake you, someone's trying to like change around what they're doing.
ใช้ความเร็วเล่นให้สนุกไม่ใช่เล่นกันสายกันโอ้ไม่ได้ลงรวมเหมือนกันสปาริงพวกตัวใหญ่อย่าไปเล่นอันตรายเจ็บเล่นกันก็เท่ากันสนุกเวลาเราต่อยเรา
He's saying that it's fun when you can spar with someone who's similar to you. He doesn't mean in style, he means similar in size. He's saying you don't want to spar with someone who's too much bigger because it makes you scared and tight and they might hit you too hard. But he's making a point about using sparring time as a time to play around and experiment with things. That's how you get timing. That's how you get things. He's actually re-bringing up that spinning back elbow that I did on him that surprised him so much. He like keeps thinking about it. It means it's really good. It means that's exactly how it's supposed to go.
นี่แหละถ้ายืนอย่างนี้
So even though I was galloping away from him while he was galloping towards me, which is actually how he started the very first part of this session,
ให้อยู่ระยะอย่างนี้
I'm a little bit better. He's saying to put your hips slightly back and have flexibility in
อย่าง
them.
นี้ไม่ได้
Don't be flat on your feet because you want to have this bend in your knees and this flexibility. Even though I'm moving much better than I was when we first started and he asked me to do this, he can feel the tension. And so he's making a secondary correction about this looseness and flexibility.
ใช้ตัวนี้ดี
When you kick, he wants your arm to go behind you, like
ถ้าหางตรงนี้มันไม่
behind your leg.
ถ้าอยู่ใกล้ๆถ้าอย่างนี้ก็ไม่แรง
He's like, you won't have any power if you put it out.
แต่ต้อง
He actually wants your thumb to twist
ปกติ
on the extension of your off arm as it's coming behind your leg. That thing he's doing with his hand right there, that's how your hand should actually
ถ้าอยู่
twist
ใกล้ก็ไม่
down
หนัก
as you throw it behind you on your kick.
แล้วมือซ้ายก็ต้องเข้าหูฮัลโหลอย่าเอาเข้ามาอย่างนี้
He's saying that your other arm should go up to your ear.
ไม่ได้ตรงหน้า
He says some people put it across their body. He hates this. You put it up to your head. It's like hello, hello, like you're answering a phone. And then your same side as you're kicking is going behind you.
ฮับเก่งอย่าเก่ง
Ya gang means like don't be tight. Ya is don't. Gang is like tight.
ซ้ายมาซ้ายมา
So you can see actually how I get tense right before a movement. This is why his like bouncing of the front leg or the bend in his knees or like this kind of constant movement, even though it's not meaningless movement. It's just like keeping the rhythm in his body at all times. It takes out that little moment of tension right before throwing something. There we go. That's how that teep works.
สบายนี่เลย
Look at his feet and his knees and his hips. Look at his like general kind of posture and how he actually can move without moving anywhere. Like he's just kind of like shape shifting all the time, but he's not necessarily stepping his feet all over the place. But it makes his rhythm kind of unpredictable.
ครับไม่เลยครั้ง ไม่ต้องรีบร้อนดูคู่ต่อสู้เขาจะ
I don't read Ron. That's what I just said. Read is to hurry, and then Ron is hot. So basically, you're saying like you don't have to like be in a tension hurry. You don't have to like rush your way to things. Be calm. Use your timing. Use your rhythm.
เตะขาซ้ายมาก
ใช่เกิด
So he's saying if you face another orthodox fighter, use your left side all the time because it's open.
เตะที่ข้อเท้าหลังเท้าได้ข้อเท้าได้
He's saying don't kick with your foot.
ประมาณนี้ดี
Kick with like the bottom 5 inches above your ankle.
นี่สัมภาระนี่ดีมากนิดเดียว
This is cool. I actually learned this from Gansak in the Muay Thai Library. So if you go back and watch the Gansak Muay Thai Library session, he shows how to just drag that front foot back just barely in order to throw your front side kick. So instead of like a big galloping like switch step before you throw the kick, you just barely drag that front foot back. It's very fast and it's hard to see. Look at the flexibility in his hips. See how he can get out of the way by just barely moving his hips back, but he's not taking a step back, so he doesn't actually lose any distance himself.
ปั๊บทำยังไงไม่รู้
So if someone catches your kick, what do you do? He felt my panic when he got my kick, which is why he asked me, what do you do? He wants to know whether I know at all.
ต่อยเลย
He says, if you're caught tight, just throw the punch.
เร็วเขาจับอะไรต่อยเลย
Fast. Reo,
แต่เรา
fast.
อย่าไปจับคนตัวสูงคนตัวสูงเขาเปลี่ยนใส่ไม่ใช่ตัวเท่ากัน
He's saying if your opponent is tall, you can't wrench their leg up because you don't have leverage. It's not going to do anything to wrench their leg up.
อ้าว
If they're the same height as you, when you catch their leg, you can lift it, and that'll off balance them, and they can't really get power on that kick.
ต่อยแล้วทีนี้เตะขวาแล้วดึงกลับลงแบก
He's saying you can just snatch it back out.
ใช้ความเร็ว
you have to turn your knee because when you turn your kick over in order to kick somebody, your knee is pointed towards them. When they grab it, you have to turn your knee up in order to snatch it back. But you kind of have to like know that you're gonna do this.
ถ้าเขาจับติดแล้วต่อย
See, he grabbed it good, so I couldn't quite get out. So it was halfway getting my leg out and halfway getting caught, but I'm still in a position that I can punch him in the face if he like
นี่คือจังหวะ
takes hold of it.
อีกอันหนึงวิธีหลอกเขาแทงเขา
So lock is to lie. It's what they use for faking. Lock.
อ่า
So he's saying
แทงเขา
you're gonna fake
วิธีคิดแทงเขาทำที่นี่นี่คือเขาแทงเขาเดี๋ยวว่าที่นี่อยู่ใกล้แทงเขาอยู่ใกล้หลอกเฟกมันจะตีเขาไม่ตีปล่อยมันสไปเดอร์แมน
So he's saying fake like you're gonna knee and then punch.
นู่นต่อยเฟกวับนี่ดีตัวนี้ดีมากอยู่ใกล้ครับครับสไปเดอร์แมนดึงหาหลังกลับ
This is my favorite thing.
ดึงหาหลังกลับ
He calls it Spider-Man. I have only ever heard that as Superman, but I kind of like it much better as Spider-Man. So he's like Spider-Man, right? So you fake the knee and throw the punch. You can fake the kick and throw the punch. And when you're with Arjan Pipa, that's the Spider-Man. Look at how he's playing with range though. Like this whole time he's had me juggling him like at quite a distance. So I'm using teeps or like if he comes rushing at me, I'm spinning out to the side. Now he's actually letting me be at my range, the range that I like. But you're still using fakes to be in this inside fighting distance. I asked him how to come out of a spinning back elbow. He says most of the time you just reverse your spin and come back out. Sometimes you have to complete the spin, but most times you're gonna like unravel back out. But he's saying that it depends on the strength of your legs and the flexibility in your knees. If you have like peg legs in your feet, you're not actually gonna get out of anything.
พอเขาดูเขาก้าวเข้าไปอีกหันเลยที่นี่เป็นศอกกลับที่อาจารย์บอก
So he's showing me how to watch him. As I'm punching and elbowing him, I have to see whether he's like coming back at me, and that's when you throw that reverse elbow. He's like, if they're against the ropes and they're leaning back against the ropes, you let it be a little trampoline, and as their weight is coming back, they're springing off of it. You like, in Thai it's called chon, means to clash. You use that like power against power to throw that
ลิลลี่จำ
axe elbow.
ใช้อาวุธมวยไทยต่อยเมื่อไหร่ถอย ฟันศอกเมื่อไหร่ถอยกลัวแบบถ้าคุณฟันศอกปึ๊บคุณหยุดเขาจะขึ้นจะสู้จะคืนคุณต้องถอย
So he's saying for Muay Thai,
อาจารย์ต่อย
you want to use this moment of chon, especially with elbows. You want to make this like double clashing when your opponent is coming back at you. So if I elbow him, I anticipate that he's going to elbow me back, and instead of diving into him, I'm going to dodge back and have him miss. Look at his escape. He's so happy when he's escaping. He's not calling for the strikes anymore. He's making me see the distance that he's at. It's really good. That's how you use pad work to build eyes as well, to be able to like see what range you're at and kind of play with your pad man. Sparring's better because they're actually trying to do stuff to you, but that's a way that a pad man can help you see.
มาเป็นการหมัดสอบนี่รู้หมัดการใช้หมัดใช้หมัดต้องมีหมัดด้วยนี่ยูมีปัญหามากพี่ปูหวังติดมากใช่ไหม
He was fascinated by the like dings and scars I have on my shins. It's strange that he thought that was a problem. I have a scar on my right shin that my shin had split open in a fight. So he's saying that I had kicked too high, that like you should kick in the bottom 5 inches of your leg. And I'm like, this was from a block. Like, I blocked and my leg split open rather than me kicking.
ใช่ใช่นักมวยมีปัญหาทุกคน
I was like, I can't feel my shins. In that fight where it split open, I wasn't aware that it had split open until actually quite late in the fight.
ทิ้งเหมือนงูทำที่นี่ไม่หนัก
So he's talking about punches again, and he's saying that they have to be like a snake. He really likes this kind of like viper, like striking out and pulling back.
ไม่เหมือนกัน
Not pecking like a bird, but striking like a snake.
ถ้ายับแบบนี้เห็นไหมมันจะไม่เหมือนกัน
Again, he's turning my fist so that I can like kind of corkscrew slip through his guard.
1 2ถอยเหมือนเดิมยับมา
So he wants my forward movement and my backward movement to be the same, like fluid. Look at his hook. See how it kind of pulls back towards himself?
Body okay. Body.
He's saying that the punch that you're throwing has to be different depending on where on the body you're hitting. This totally makes sense, but this is not something that everyone goes through. Which is that if you're hitting the chin, you're going to be twisting this way. If you're going to hit the body, you're going to be kind of going up. Like the angle of your fist has to go with the shape of a human body. It can't be the same punch everywhere on the body. So he wants me to feel this rhythm. He's coming towards me, so he wants me to step back, and then throw a punch. So see how there's this stop at the end of a combination? He wants that flexibility in my legs and in my knees so that I can kind of like bend back and then whip forward like a reed in the ground or something. There it is. So he's saying if you take a step back, it has to be the same. You like spring forward with these punches. You can see that the way he's holding in terms of like how he puts himself against the ropes for this, it's the same thing he was doing with the elbows. He's not literally teaching it to me, but he's doing it where he puts himself in the ropes for short range weapons. So you move your opponent into the ropes and now you can punch an elbow. So see how he likes that dodge back and then come with a punch. So he's saying you can't be really tight because then you can't dodge out of the way. You have to be relaxed all the time with this kind of like flexibility. So he wants me to dodge out of the way on that one. So whether you block or whether you dodge back, that's up to you, but you have to be sure in what you're doing because it's what's on the other side of it is your counter. There we go. Taekwondo means use speed. So now punches and elbows are working together. There's a slight difference in range for elbows and punches. So your punches fold nicely into elbow range. See how he's making me play with much longer ranges? Like he gets me in the very short range of punches and elbows, where I like to stay, and then he'll make me use something longer with this dodge back and come back in. So I'm not actually taking huge steps back, I'm not losing range, but I'm creating longer range opportunities with that flexibility. So I actually threw that elbow first. He didn't show that to me, and he just worked it in, which is really cool. So he's saying, again, it's the same as when I turn him, how my hand slips from his elbow down to his glove in order to rip him to the side. He wants my hand to slip down to his wristband for this elbow. So you're kind of hooking him into you a little bit, like pulling him, a little bit of a reel in for that elbow. Was it faster? Taekwondo. Dun is to like pull. So he wanted me to pull him for the fan sok, which comes across, but you can also pull him for a backwards elbow.
ครับมาถึงบ้านก็ตี
He liked my elbows actually when I started doing stuff like this. I think he could feel the power on the end of them. So he just rolled with it, like he started folding it more in. I was having fun too. It was nice. He's saying that would be a knockout for sure. This is very typical of Thai gyms. People will kind of like stroll in. You never know. I don't know who this is. I don't know this gym. But he knew Arjan Pipa. And you just kind of like, you say hi to who's coming in. There might be a pause in your trainer going over and greeting somebody. It's very like open door.
เขาตีขวาเมื่อไหร่เขาเปลี่ยนตีปลายเท้าเมื่อไหร่ดึงปึ๊กได้ซ้ำเท้าแล้วแต่คุณ
So he actually asked for something other than what I did. But the point is, you block and then you change what you're doing because the opponent is going to anticipate that you do the same thing that you just did. And so you just want to switch it.
ถ้าเขาตีสูงถ้าใกล้ค่อยถีบเนี่ยถีบได้ถ้าไกลถีบไม่ได้อย่างนี้ไม่ได้ดึงอย่างเดียว
So he's saying if they're too close to you, you can't teep. So again, it's feeling range, it's feeling where your opponent is, and then you know what strike is available to you. If you're too close, you can't teep. But shockingly, from very, very close, you can head kick, which is what he actually had asked me to do in that first one. There we go. So it's just feeling where he's at, and then if he takes a big step towards me for a kick, you can block it, you can get out of the way, you can use a little dodge back.
ต่อยท้อง
Here's where he wants that.
ดึงฮึกแค่นั้นแล้วทีนี้ใกล้ทีบเลยปึ๊บโอ้ทำอะไรได้
So he's saying do whatever you can do. Like, use these opportunities to feel what weapons are available at all these different ranges so that you don't have to, like, in your head calculate, okay, wait, how close are they? You just feel it, like you can just see it. Your head doesn't have to think its way through it, but your eyes will see it and your body will know what that distance is, and it'll be this automatic calculation that you don't have to think about.
ปึ๊กคืนแค่นั้น
He really wants me to kick him in the back when he overshoots on that kick. When I dodge back and he misses, you should always counter.
มวยเข่าอย่างกลัวมวยเข่าที่นี่มามวยเข่าทำอะไรก็ช่างเขาตีเข่าเหมือนที่อาจารย์บอกอาจารย์ยกขาเมื่อไหร่เอาเข่าบังอาจารย์ตีขวาเมื่อไหร่ดึงอย่างที่อาจารย์บอกอยากอยู่ก็อาจารย์เขาอยู่ดึงเลย
So he's talking about Muay Thai. He's talking about how the way to defeat Muay Thai is to just constantly turn them to the
แทง
side.
ใหม่ยกเข่าบัง
So as they're coming towards you, they're just going to want a knee. So you just spoil their knees in all these different ways. You can block them, you can turn them. But basically linear fighters like Muay Thai or Muay Mat, you want to twist them all the time. Or juggle. He wants a teep after that. I got yelled at by Dieselnoy at my own gym when he was advising at my gym for teeping exactly the way he's telling me to right there, because then you have to close that distance again. He likes it because the opponent's going to be closing the distance for you, but as the Muay Thai fighter, you're going to be closing it. He was very generous with me. He put a lot of himself into that. He hasn't trained anyone at all for like 4 months, so he's a little bit out of shape. But he can keep going. He's saying you learn these techniques, but in order to be relaxed doing them, you just have to do them all the time. So he's going to show me a little bit of clinching, and he's basically just teaching me how to like swim to the inside of the arms to control. Your Thai trainer will say like hand. Like hand means shoulders and arms, and basically it's this like controlling the shoulders and arms. It's whatever isn't locking. So there's like hand, which is this, and then there's locking, which is like locking behind the neck or holding somebody. So what he's trying to show me is how to do this swimming in and controlling from the inside of the elbows. He's saying you don't want to be on the outside, you always want to be on the inside. He's saying if you're outside, you get stuck.
อาจารย์สอนมีไปแล้วดิ
And he's saying to lock out the neck. This is brilliant. This is something I know intellectually and just don't have the habit for. But as someone is coming to try to grab you, you just close your neck and they cannot get a hold on you. Even if they get your neck and you close it after, you can kind of pinch their arm off of you.
ลิลลี่ก็ขึ้นสูง
But he's saying that when you train clinching, you really want to do the like hand, like working with the arms more often, because if you just grab each other's necks all the time, like to take a day off because you can't hold your head up.
ทีนี้ดึง
But see how, as he's coming to get me, I roll over him and kind of pinch his arm.
แค่นั้นแหละ
Dieselmoy really likes that one. Dieselmoy fought punchers, and he would just wrap their arm.
โอเคเข้าใจต้องเข้าใจมันทุกวันทุกวัน
ใช่
อย่าอย่างนี้ถ้าอย่างนี้ทำอะไรได้
ใช่
ถ้าอย่างนี้
Don't be tight like this. See this little like shake in his hips.
ครับ
He likes tucking his arms behind his body, just kind of like
ถ้าเนี่ยไม่
folds them behind.
ไม่ใช่คนของเรา
I'll tell you who the absolute number one king of letting his arms flop behind his body is Samrak Sorkhamsing, who I'm sure Arjan Pipa knew quite well and worked with, but he tucks his arms behind his body on everything.
ปีต่อยไม่ได้ทำอะไร
He's saying if Muay Thai didn't have music, nobody would know what to do. They would all just kind of stand there. So he's basically saying that the music, like the rhythm and music of Muay Thai, is completely important and integral to being able to move, to the point that if fighters don't hear it, they won't move. So you obviously don't have to have Muay Thai music going, but you have to have your music going. Like you have to have your kind of rhythms going. So he's saying, look at the legs, punch the body, look in the eyes, kick the legs.
ใช่
พอเราสอนเขาเราก็จะมีคู่เล่น
ใช่
มีคู่เล่น
He's saying anyone can teach you technique, but you have to put the rhythms in your body. You have to be relaxed. You have to make the music, basically.
1 ชั่วโมงมันให้มัน 100% ไม่ได้
Like 1 hour cannot make you into Sanchai.
พี่อาจารย์50เขา
He asked me if I knew how old he was, and I was like, I have no idea. And when he told me he's turning 59 this year, I was like,
29.
holy shit. He feels very old. He was like, he's like, I'm not as femur as I used to be. My technique has gone down because I'm old, but you can't see it. Like, I'm sure he feels it. Everyone feels it. But he's still so fast and flexible and just kind of, I don't know. You don't lose that stuff. Like, you never lose the musicality. Maybe you can't rip on the guitar the way you did when you were 20, but like, you still play a mean guitar.